Alright, we're gonna see how fast I can film this video for you. Hopefully it's quick and lickety-split. Hey friends, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. I am here to do a very long overdue wrap up for the last couple of months of my reading. I think we have to do August, September, October, and November. There's 4 of them. Normally I at least get this is like the 3-month mark, but it went a little long this time and we're at 4. The plus side is that I didn't read much of anything in those 4 months, so it shouldn't really take that long because I have been slacking on the reading game. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it and talk about the books that I read, starting with, what did I say, August. The first book that I read in August was Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker. This is the sequel to The Simple Wild, which I read earlier this year and it's one of my absolute favorite books of the year. We are following a main character from Toronto. Her name is Kala and she is like a lifestyle fashion blogger, and she gets a call one day from her dad who lives in Alaska saying that he's not in great health. They've been estranged for several years now and she really doesn't have a relationship with him, but this may be her last chance to have that relationship, so she decides to travel to Alaska to visit her father, and while she's there she is kind of forced to befriend this very cranky bush pilot who is kind of her dad's right-hand man at his company. He owns a fleet of bush planes. There's so much animosity. They do not understand each other. They're from completely different worlds and they really butt heads at the beginning, and then over time throughout the book there's a relationship that brews. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and this is the sequel, and I loved this just as much as the first book. I don't know if I could pick one over the other because it's just like one complete story in my mind, and I love both sides of the story equally. I felt like it was a really great balance of creating tension and like problems in their relationship without compromising like the relationship the two characters had built in the first book. I just really enjoyed it. I loved it so much. I think I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I did, and it is one of my favorite things I've read this year. Second thing that I read in August, I almost said April, was Immortal Reign by Morgan Rhodes, which is the 6th book in the Fallen Kingdom series. I have been reading the series for like years now. It's taken me forever to get to this final book because I just knew in my head that it wasn't going to be good. I had only heard like negative things. I didn't like the 5th book. I thought the 5th book was really terrible, and I had really low hopes for this book. I have to say, it wasn't the worst thing I've read, and it wasn't my least favorite of the series, but it wasn't my favorite, and overall the series is just not great. It's kind of always been pitched as like a YA Game of Thrones. There's a lot of political machinations happening. There's a lot of points of view, but it gets very convoluted throughout the series as it progresses because there's just too much story happening without enough time to expand on the story, and the final book felt very much the same way. He was trying to do too much in too few pages. There are 6 books, but the books are all very small. Like they need to be longer books. Like Throne of Glass, the books get ginormous as the series progresses, and this one, they were all very stagnantly the same size, and it didn't work for me. I'm happy that I finished it and that I can say I read it, but really wasn't worth my time, to be quite honest. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. And the next book I read was actually our House Salt Club pick for August, and that is Set Fire to the Gods by Sarah Rosh and Kristen Simmons. This was pitched as a Gladiator meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. 2 things that I haven't seen, so I didn't have as much stock in this as others did, aside from the fact that I had really enjoyed Sarah Rosh's previous books. This one just didn't go the distance for me. We're following 2 main characters, one who is like a fire wielding prodigy, and then the other one who faking his powers. He's using a friend to help fake the fact that he may have earth powers, and these 2 get into a gladiator style battle with each other, and then they team up to bring down the villains in the story essentially. And I really quite enjoy my Goodreads review for this. Sums up my feelings quite well. Was it the most profound thing I've read? No. Did it have the most depth of anything I've read? No. Was it the most fleshed out of anything I've read? No. But it was nostalgic. It was fun. It was tropey, and just what my last 2 brain cells needed in this point in 2020. For that reason, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know that I would recommend this because I don't know that anyone would actually enjoy this because it's really not at the level that we expect from YA fantasy these days. But like if you're looking for a callback or a throwback to like old school YA, like back in 2014, 2015, this might hit the button for you. We're shifting into September. This book I started in July but didn't finish until September, and it was part of this reading vlog that I did where I was trying to finish all these books so that I could do these other reading vlog projects, and then I never did the other reading vlog projects because I'm trash. So the first book I finished in that reading vlog is Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert, which is the second book in the Wicked Villain series, which is this very steamy, very erotic, like romance of the Disney villain variety. So this one follows Meg, Hades, and Hercules. Meg and Hades are in this like contract relationship. They have a understanding very similar to like, not very similar, but kind of similar. I hate to compare this to Disney because if you are looking for Disney reimagined, like this may not be it for you. If you're looking for Disney reimagined with a lot of very explicitly described sex scenes, then maybe this is for you. If you have weird crushes on the villains from Disney, maybe this is the right series for you. If you don't feel that way, maybe not. So it's like a weird book to pitch because like I want to compare it to Disney, but like I shouldn't because it's not the same. Way left field Disney, but we're following Meg and Hades, who are in a relationship, and they rope in Hercules to like join the relationship. There's a bunch of contracts and they work at a underground sex club in this fictional town of Carver City where all these other villains have territories. The first one followed Jafar and Jasmine, and they're back in this book. And it's like really fun and such a wild ride, and I absolutely love this series, but it is not for everybody, and you need to be in that right place to read this book. Like, don't read this at a family gathering. Or do. You do you, boo. I loved this and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore. It's 11 o'clock. I've been up for a lot of hours. There was a whole like mouse escapade in this basement last night, and I didn't sleep, and I'm not asleep yet, and that's really bad for me tomorrow. Like, Wednesday Jordan's gonna hate current Jordan. Guys, I'm so sorry that this is what you are getting today. I feel so tired that I'm like verging on feeling drunk, but I need to film this video. I'm filming this video for you. Feel the dedication right now, please. The next book that I read in September was Final Girls by Riley Sager, which is the first book that he wrote. It's his debut novel. I read Lock Every Door last year and absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite mystery thriller books I've ever read, and I want to read all of his books now as a result. And so this has to do with like the trope of Final Girls, which is a really huge psychology trope within horror media. I took a class on this in college, and it was one of the most fascinating things that I've ever learned, and I knew I had to read this book when I heard the concept for it. We're basically following this girl who is a final girl from this like brutal massacre that happened to her in college, and she's labeled a final girl by the media, and her and three other women are all labeled final girls, and they're like this media phenomenon. She befriends one of them from the past, and this woman winds up dead, and she knows for a fact that she did not commit suicide like the police believe. And then the third final girl shows up, and the two of them are trying to investigate what happened to the original final girl. I did really enjoy this, but it was kind of middle of the road for me. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely not as good as Lock Every Door, but still enjoyable and like a pretty good place to start with adult murder mystery thriller fiction. I think this would be like a really good intro book for that. Then I read a bunch of the Wicked Villain bonus content. We're not going to go through all of these, but I read Jasmine's Collar, Meg's Punishment, Jasmine's Winter Solstice, and Hercules' Cross. I didn't rate any of these, but I read them. They were all fun. And the last book that I finished in September was the last book from that reading vlog, The Red Scrolls of Magic. Literally what I read in that vlog is like all of what I read in September. I'm a disaster. This is the first book in the Eldest Curses series. This is her adult co-authored work with Wesley Chu. We're following Magnus and Alec at different points in time, I think. So like this first book took place right after City of Glass. They're on a mission to, well, they're on vacation in Paris, and then they end up going on a mission involving the Red Scrolls of Magic, which is one of the 3 like warlock books in this world, and each of the books in this series has to do with one of the 3 warlock books. It roped into a cult that Magnus may or may not have started. And I did really enjoy this. I listened to it partly in audiobook and I read part of it, and the audiobook was very enjoyable. I really liked the narration for it. I really liked being in Alec and Magnus's points of view because we've never really done that before. I thought it was like a fun inclusion to the Shadowhunter world. I know a lot of people really love these 2 characters. I liked seeing their dynamic firsthand as compared to the other characters in the series' points of view. I'm excited to see what the other books in the series do and like where else they fit into the timeline and how that ultimately affects like the final books. It's a good time, not my favorite thing that she's ever written, but I still really enjoyed it. And I'm going to read the sequel, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Then let's move on into October. In October, I read 3 books. The first book I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, which I mentioned before. I'm trying to read all of his books. I've got 1 left. This one I think is my second favorite by him. An adult now, but when she was a young girl, she lived in this haunted house with her family. And something happened that caused them to flee from the house in the middle of the night, and she has no recollection of what happened there. Her dad wrote a book about their time there and ended up becoming like a bestseller. It really has made this family infamous for that reason. She's always believed that the book is fiction. Her father unexpectedly passes away, and she is left with the deed to the house. She didn't realize it was still in her family, and so she has to go back to the house to pack it up and get ready to sell it. And while she's living there, a lot of weird things are happening that she doesn't know if like really happened in the past or not, but they're all mimicking her dad's book. Is the book fact or fiction is kind of like the whole mystery of the story, and I really enjoyed this. It took a lot of twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, and it went in a direction that I also wasn't really expecting, and I wanted it to be like one thing and it ended up being something different, but it was still interesting and I still liked that thing. It was just a good mystery thriller, and I really enjoyed it, and I have no more thoughts because my brain is dead. I did mention that this book gave me the heebie-jeebies, just to let you know. There were definitely some things about this haunted, because you don't know if the house is really haunted. She's having like an episode of some kind. Like you don't really know what's going on, and that was definitely kind of freaking me out. I got to a point where I could no longer read this at night. I did really enjoy it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson, which is the 3rd and final book in the Truly Devious series. I listened to this on audiobook. I did the first 2 on audiobook as well, and I really enjoy the audiobook narrations for these books. And this series is like a YA murder mystery series that takes place at a boarding school, which we've discovered is something, or I've discovered is something that I do really enjoy. This series, though, not particularly was my favorite. I felt there were a lot of like aspects of it that were lackluster. We're following Stevie, who is going to the Ellingham Academy, which is an academy where teenagers can go to pursue a particular gift of theirs, and she loves murder, mystery, and crime. And so she's going there to solve the infamous murders that happened at this academy back in the 30s, I think. The owner of the academy's wife and daughter were abducted and murdered, and he mysteriously died as well. So you're getting past and present timelines, which is something I really love. There are also murders of students happening in Stevie's timeline, and they may or may not have something to do with the past. We don't really know. My camera's gonna overheat again. Oh, it's definitely gonna overheat again. No, I wanna go to bed. Like I mentioned, my camera overheated. I don't remember what I was talking about. I know we were talking about The Hand on the Wall. I found the story to be lackluster. It's not my favorite YA murder mystery. YA murder mystery is very hard to do because you're like towing this line of what's appropriate for YA and also trying to make it like a thrilling murder mystery. And I just felt that this one was lacking in places. None of the details have really stuck with me since I finished it. I don't really remember the plot twists, the resolution to the story, or anything like that. It's not, in my mind, a very impactful read, and I don't remember much of what happened in the first or second books either. It's a fun time. I enjoyed it in the moment, but it's not something that I ever will like look back on very strong feelings towards. I believe for that reason is why I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And then the final book I'm going to talk about in this video actually is the last book I read in October. I technically didn't read a single book in November. I didn't finish anything in November. And I spent the majority of the month reading 2 things and didn't finish either of them. That's kind of a bummer. And the final book that I read was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in her new Solomance series. It's an adult fantasy series that takes place at a magical school where the magical school is trying to kill its students. We're following our main character whose name I can't remember. Is there with an M? L. No, it's L. Because her name is Galadriel, right? That's the character from Lord of the Rings. She's a very gifted student at this academy, but she isn't able to really show off her giftedness because of what her gift and power is. All the while the school is trying to kill you, and the further you advance in the school, the more deadly it becomes. The darkness is constantly like throwing monsters at them. It's very interesting. It's like a really weird concept, and I really enjoyed like the school aspect and the atmosphere of it and like the idea, but then there were like a lot of other like lackluster things involved for me. This was our book club pick for October, so we did a really long in-depth discussion for this book on Sam's channel from Thoughts on Tomes. You can always catch our live shows on Sam's channel. A lot of us had like similar qualms of like there were things for this book that were really strong and done really well, and other things where Novik just didn't expand enough and didn't like dive into enough. It's not super memorable for me personally. Like I don't remember really anything about the plot of this book or the character's name, for example. I don't remember what I said in the live show like rating wise, but I feel like a 2.5 3-star is kind of like a good place for this book because I read it and I remember being like fine while reading it and like enjoying it, and I think I read it fairly quickly, but it doesn't last with me, and unfortunately I just don't really have much to say on it because I don't remember much of it. I remember there was like this larger conversation happening in the story, and we were like speculating how that was going to play out in the sequel because there is a boy that Elle is not interested in, but he's interested in her, and they have a really fun dynamic, and that was probably the highlight of the book for me. There's definitely some balance of the powers that be going on between the two of them, so if you like that like light side, dark side, I'm thinking like Alina and the Darkling or like Kylo and Rey dynamics, and you might like the dynamic between Elle and the main male character whose name is escaping my brain, Orion. I'm interested to see how that plays out into the sequel because there's definitely some more things going on there. I don't have any particularly strong feelings towards this book overall, and I gave it a, what did I say? A 3 out of 5 stars? A 2.5? I don't remember. And yeah, that's it. This video ends on kind of a sour note. I, to be honest, haven't had the best reading in the last couple of months. I've been really struggling with like focusing and feeling engagement in my reading. I'm not picking up anything that's like really particularly holding my attention. I'm not reading as vigorously as I was at the beginning of 2020 when I was like really killing it. I'm kind of losing my momentum, and I'm falling into this trap of like, I don't know what I like in books anymore. I don't know what my reading taste is anymore, because things that I think I'm going to like, I don't like, and things that I don't normally pick up maybe are now things I like, and I just don't know that because I don't read them. So I'm in this really weird reading place. Hopefully though, with December here, I can read some more like fun, Christmassy, lighthearted things, get back into some reading flow, and bring you some better content, because it's hard to make book content when you're not reading. Thank you guys so much for watching and for hanging out with me today. I am sorry if these book reviews weren't as great as they could have been. I hope you still got something out of this video. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. If you would like to follow me on any other platform, my handles for Instagram and Twitter are on the screen now. I'm most active on Instagram if you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, in case I disappear again, as I have been tending to do this year. But thank you for sticking around, and I hope to have some better content for the end of the year videos for you guys. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!